Well, that last video got quite a fun response. To be honest, I wasn't sure quite what to expect. I was very nervous putting that out there. It was kind of a coming out of the closet, so to speak, for myself. You know, I'm just so stoked I did it because it just really affirmed for me who I am. You know, that this journey of belief has been an evolution for me, and I am very firm in where I stand today. And I'm okay that it doesn't jive with the fundamental Christian view of things, which is a view that I very much held for a long time. And I'm proud of who I am. You know, to a lot of people, they probably think I'm going to hell now. But that's fine. That's okay with me if you think that. You know, I'm the type of guy who was really good at putting on masks. I was, you know, bullied as a kid, so putting on masks, you know, being the funny guy, just never really getting into conflict. I just wanted to always be a chameleon and be liked by everybody so that I wouldn't get picked on. You know, I was a very overweight kid, so I just always tried to make sure that I was just liked by everyone. So, you know, I didn't really have a firm identity in anything because I was just always wanting to be liked. So I'm like, okay, I perceive this person likes this. Okay, I'm gonna talk and be about that. Or, you know, they're into this. Okay, I'm gonna pretend at least to be into that, just so I could be liked. You know. And so when it came to getting into the church, man, you know, I had a supernatural experience when I was 25. And that's kind of where my spiritual journey began. And I told somebody who was I was close to him at that time, and he was like, hey, go check out this church in Corona called Crossroads. And so I went for it. And I would say my view of the LGBTQ community at that point was I didn't really have any thoughts on it, right? As a young man, in your early teens, I don't know when, you're just if you're a straight man, to be perceived as gay, it's might be the worst thing ever. And it's definitely kind of a homophobic thought, but that's where I was, to be honest with you, at that time. And just didn't, was pretty ignorant. But I got into the church world, started going to this church, and I was so zealous, man. So they had this program at this church, and it was called BT. Shout out to my friends who know what BT is. But it was short for basic training, and it was trying to mimic boot camp, but for church, right? So if you're trying to get involved in church, this is a big mega church. They had this program called BT. So of course I went for it because I'm like, yeah, man, I'm about this life now. And so I went through this program. You're supposed to memorize all these verses. You're supposed to experience every single ministry at that church. I mean, every single one. And then also you have to do things like pull weeds in the field. You have to, the old church guy flex, pick up all the chairs. And then, I remember after every service, we had to get on our hands and knees and clean this 3,000 seat auditorium, which is crazy. So we were free labor. We were free labor pretty much for the Lord. And, in this program, I flew through it. I went through those 3 months of that BT program, loved it, was all in. So I became a leader of that program. And what that looks like is you become a leader of a group of men who want to go through that program, and you just kind of lead them, and, and so you try to teach them as best as you can to be a good Christian, which is crazy because I was so unqualified at that point. But anyways, I remember having a handful of young men coming up to me, sharing privately that they struggled with same-sex attraction. And at that point, all I knew what to do with that was what the church told me, which was, they can't have a relationship if they, if they're active in a same-sex relationship. So let's just pray that this attraction goes away, that God would heal them of this attraction that they have. And, I did that for every single guy that would share that with me. And, that's where I was at. And, at this church, they had this guy, his name was Ty something. Never forget his last. I always forget his last name, but he would always come speak at the church, and it was like the church's like poster child for like someone who was extremely gay. You know, he was gay. He was also in drag, and you know, he always says in his testimony that he was super depressed during that time, which is probably, you know, maybe true. I don't know, and then he met Jesus. Jesus healed him of his gay. He's now married to a woman and has kids, and he's as happy as can be. And you know what? I don't know if that's true. If you know, and sincere. If he's not sincere and that's not authentic, then that's very damaging. But man, that guy was flamboyant. I remember that guy came on stage, and my brain for sure was like, oh, dude, this dude is still flaming. But you know, they had that guy come speak at that church multiple times. So yeah, of course, that's what I was taught. That's what I was trained. That God can take you from being gay to being straight. And yeah, so that's what I would do. I'd pray for people who had that struggle. And, you know, stayed in that world for a long time. I was at that church for a long time. But I also was like, you know, trying to do the acting thing. And so I started going to this church out in Beverly Hills called City Church. And, you know, it's like Justin Bieber's church. A lot of people from the entertainment industry go there. And Judah Smith's church, and I got super involved there. I mean, I was always the type of guy. I was single, you know. My whole life revolved around doing church, you know, whatever that looked like, and I loved it, man. And so I started going to a Bible study through City Church, and it was probably a group of like 30 people, maybe a little less. But anyways, there were, I think, like 3 people in that Bible study that, you know, were in same-sex relationships. Also being there studying the Bible, also they're like, apparently to me, having a relationship with God. I remember like they would share stuff that God showed them as they were studying their Bible, and I was just like, this is some really deep God stuff, and just kind of being blown away by that. But they were also very open about their relationship with God. I know they knew, you know, what the church's stance was on, you know, about what they, you know, their, you know, being in a relationship with the same sex, but they still very much were just who they were. They had an obvious love for God and wanted to, you know, continue to be in fellowship with believers. And so, man, I love that time. Those people became my family, man. We traveled together. We, you know, we would go to dinners all the time after church. It was a blast. I had so much fun. But, you know, so these people became, like I said, real friends. I got to know these people intimately. And one guy in there who was, you know, attracted to the same sex, I became closer to him than anybody. He's become a brother to me, and still to this day is one of my best friends. Although he maybe have more in common with my wife, he's still, like I said, he's still my brother, and I love him. But anyways, he became one of my best friends, and it was very refreshing to be like, oh, I can open myself up to have a relationship with somebody who I would have not been able to prior to this, because I've been told, you know, well, 1, homophobia was a real thing. 2, you know, these people, you know, they're going to hell because they're attracted to the same sex. But you know, I had relationships with these people and got to know them, and they're beautiful, loving people. They have relationships with God. And so to me, that really started like just messing with my mind in terms of like, well, I thought you can't be gay and have a relationship with God and God be active in your life. It's just not possible. You got to repent. You got to not be active in that, and then you're good. Then that's only when God will interact with you. But that's not what I witnessed. So I remember at that point in time, since I had held on to the belief that these people couldn't have a relationship with God, being like, well, you know, maybe God still doesn't want them to be gay, but you know, but that's not on me. Like I can't change that. I'm loving this person as Jesus called me to do. Love your neighbor. And I'm you know, friends with them, and I support them. And if God doesn't want them to be gay, then you know what? He'll quote unquote heal them that. He'll take that out of them. And you know, it's kind of silly to say, but it just never happened. But I remember the thing that like impacted me the most is that you know, again, we were in a Bible study. This is where I met people from the LGBTQ community who are also believers and very much had a relationship with God. And I remember they were having a whole separate Bible study for the people in that community. So I asked them, I said, hey, is it cool if I just joined just to hear your guys' stories and, you know, just understand more? Because I was like, my mind was being blown just witnessing this, right? Something that I've been told. and then experiencing something very different. So I went to this Bible study, didn't really say much, just listened. And I remember one guy had this, he shared his story of being around at 11, realizing he was different, and he grew up somewhere, like I think in Texas, and his parents were very much fundamental Christian. He grew up in a fundamental Christian church, so being that he wanted to have a relationship with God, loved God, he didn't want to be gay because he knew what that meant for him, and his parents were obviously just obviously did not accept that part of him. So they sent him to a conversion therapy, and then to conversion camps. And then he said, like, he would just cry out to God, please, God, take this away from me. Why am I cursed with this? And then, he eventually he said something like shock therapy, just to try to get that out of him and to not be that way. And at this point, as he's telling his story, he's crying, and he said, now I'm 34 and still very much have a relationship with God and love God and want to continue to pursue a relationship with God. And God spoke to me and said, son, I love you, and you can love who you love, And he said, but I'm 34 now, and I have no idea how to be in a romantic relationship. I spent 30 years of my life trying to not love who I love, not be attracted to who I'm not attracted to, and now I have no idea how to be in a romantic relationship. And I just remember thinking, man, this can't be the way, man. This can't be the way. I mean, this person obviously has loved and pursued God his whole life, all while having same-sex attraction, and did all the things you're supposed to do to not have that, and still here he was. And sincerely, I don't know, if I were him, I would have just been like, F you to the church and been out of there and just been like, I'm gonna go live my life. But he had an experience of God, and he loved God, and but he was attracted to who he was attracted to. And so it just really opened my mind. I said in the last video, I don't even believe in hell. I'm a universalist, I say that proudly. But that's kind of the progression of my belief towards that community. I think the exclusion of that community has been so damaging to the church. Their views on the church. If you ask the younger generation, I'm a millennial, but the generations below me, the interest in church has dropped. And if you ask them, one of the major reasons why they don't want to go to church is because of how the church treats the LGBTQ community. And I think that needs to change. I know people are going to be like, well, we know the truth. The truth says that, you can't be gay. Man, I would just say, get to know somebody who's gay. Get to know somebody who's different from you. Hear their stories. Build empathy. Just love them from where they are at in the world. I promise you, your heart will change. Because mine did. So that's my story. That's my journey on that belief. I'm going to turn off comments for this video just because I want to protect people. If you want to have a conversation about this, not a debate, we can talk in the DMs. But to my LGBTQ friends, I love you. And